I suppose, although, you know.
Yeah, although you said not to. Okay, good morning. My name is Daniela Marquez, and I'm doing my refutation speech on the genetically modified foods. So genetically modified foods, they have secretly become a sacred nature in the U.S. And you might even be surprised on how many GMOs or genetically modified organisms you actually eat. But guess what? You're okay. And experts say that 60 to 70% of processed foods in the U.S. already, they're in the shelves, and genetically modified ingredients such as soybeans and maize, which can also be like corn and canola oils and those stuff like that. So my advocate states that Monsanto's pesticides, are toxic to the environment, but nowadays what isn't? We live in Los Angeles or Orange County here. And we adapt to survive. But plants, they take a little bit more time to adapt to survive. So they put these like organisms in the plants, so then they can start getting rid of disease and eventually start protecting the plants, so they are not like taken in from this like nasty soil that we actually have today. And it's to be maintained in the harsh climates. Like you guys know, California has droughts all the time. We barely see the rain. We had a 3-week winter, I think. And it's to provide food all year round for a lot of people. The U.S. government's standpoint on GMO's crops is that it's safe and it's to resist disease and better can provide much needed food in starving nations. And of course, I know what you're thinking, that the government isn't always right, but these foods were made for a reason, not just to harm you. Now my question is that if Monsanto's or other companies' genetically modified organisms are toxic to human health, then why are they still being used, or why are they still out there today? And what many people don't know and don't realize is that GMOs have many benefits as well. As you guys know, malnutrition is very common in third world countries. We're very fortunate to have these, having a supermarket almost every corner that we go, but in different places they actually have to fight for food. And these countries sometimes only rely on single crops such as rice as their main diet. However, rice doesn't contain the necessary nutrients to prevent malnutrition. For example, blindness is due to missing vitamin A in third world countries, and that's very common. Researchers at the Swiss Federal Institution for Plant Sciences have created a strain of golden rice, and it contains a high content of beta-carotene, which is a lot of vitamin A. And this can actually, the people that founded this, it's a nonprofit organization called Rockefeller, I think. And it hasn't hit the markets yet because it was a nonprofit organization, and in Europe actually they were very against GMOs and they didn't want any of that stuff. They just wanted pure organic food. So it kind of hurt this nonprofit organization, but their ideal was to give this strain of golden rice, like they call it, to these third world countries that asked for it. It would be free, and it would actually help them a lot, and just because of these starving children and starving people that there is around the world. My advocate claims that these GMOs inserted to foods have caused allergies to children and contain viruses and bacteria that have never been in humans' bodies before. Yet researchers have been working on developing edible vaccines actually within tomatoes and potatoes, and they're the type of vaccines that will be much easier to ship, store, and administer than all of those traditional injectable vaccines. So now we have this technology, and they're planning on using it to actually help people that can't afford just a regular common flu shot or the shots that we normally can get at CVS over here, and it's actually going to help people out in starving countries. Now, if genetically modified organisms cause harm to people and environment, what does the FDA say about this, and how come it hasn't been taken off the market? The FDA has regulated over 40 plants and varieties since 1998. So that's over 10 years of eating this type of food, and we have no idea about it. So we're okay, we're still fine, nothing has happened to us. And there is those cases, and the way I kind of personally see it, it's like a medicine. Like all medicines have side effects, but they're mainly here to help you. And some people might get the side effects and some no, but we are overpopulated, we're stuck in poverty, And these foods are here to help us and keep us all well fed. In conclusion, these GMOs foods have the potential to solve many of the world's hunger and malnutrition problems. And problems. Also, it will help protect and preserve the environment by increasing yield and reducing reliance upon chemical pesticides and herbicides. Yet there are many challenges for the government ahead, and we must not get enthusiastic with this type of powerful technology, and it should be just used for the better of humanity and society. Thank you.
How was your bike ride?
All right, Daniela, you got the proposition pretty well labeled. The secondary issues, I think, get a little bit lost in the development of support. You present some background information. You're talking about how these plants have to adapt to survive. You're talking about the drought in California, and it all sounds like it's a justification for why we need to have these particular kinds of foods in the long run, because we are going to run into problems creating enough food for all the people in the world. And I think that that's the way you want to present that argument. Don't just present the background information on what's going on, but tell us, look, we're running into limits on how much we can produce in traditional methods. There are more and more people who are dependent on a variety of kinds of foods that have those kinds of limitations, and the whole process of genetically modifying these organisms is designed to address those issues. Should we fail to address those issues, there are going to be bigger problems. That's your general kind of response to the whole argument. It's a justification for why we continue to do these things anyway. And that comes up again at the end of the speech. It says, well, even if we do have these side effects, there is a reason that we're doing this, because in the long run there's some benefit to this. I think that's pretty good, except of course that it begins to sound like you're going to concede those side effects at the end of the speech. And I'm not saying that you couldn't concede some of them, but I think you might want to make some arguments about a few of them. And mostly you're kind of relying on this generic counterclaim to the whole issue instead of talking about the particulars. The one place where you mentioned the allergies that the advocate spent time talking about, your response is a counterclaim that says, well, edible foods will be able to deliver some vaccines. Well, that's a medical benefit of the edible foods, but it doesn't address the allergy issue. It doesn't tell us that, well, because we have tomatoes that will now give people immunity to chickenpox or whatever the illness is that people have, or golden rice that's going to supplement their beta-carotene and reduce blindness. That doesn't diminish the fact that the golden rice that's been produced has also created some other problem for people who now develop asthma because they are exposed to something in the golden rice, or they've got corn issues which turns them into celiacs that can't process gluten materials because of the genetic modifications, or whatever the criticisms were. We don't really get any specifics on that kind of thing, and I think that you need to have more of that. Yours is a much more general argument about the issue. All right, and the very first thing I want to mention, you asked about the podium. I said, go ahead and use it if that's what you wanted to do. And the first thing you did was remind us why I don't want people to use the podium, because you got behind that podium, and then the podium is designed to hold your notes, not you. And that's what you do. You just kind of lean on the podium. It's like a crutch for you the whole time you're standing up there, and you don't look as assertive. You don't look like you're in control as a result. You become a passive part of the presentation instead of an active part of the presentation. So we're also thinking about your credibility and your ethos issues here, and you want to come across. Look, you've got little pieces of paper that you're using for notes to read from, and they never leave your hands. The reason there's a podium is to put stuff on little pieces of paper. They're not leaving your hand. You don't need the podium. I know it's something to hide behind. It gives me a security blanket, that sort of thing. Be more secure in your argument. That's what you need to be. All right, thank you.